So I know we're a little late to this news, especially considering how much our audience seems to love Bercow's unique style and character. But hopefully you'll agree that it's been a busy week. So better late than never, we're going to discuss John Bercow's resignation as Speaker, what it means, and who could replace him as Speaker of the House of Commons. Before I do though, we've got some Speaker-specific merch in our store. I told you our audience had a thing for him. So we made a 10-year version of our order design, in a whole bunch of colours, and we made a flying flamingo shirt based on the already infamous Bercowism from earlier this week.
I couldn't give a flying flamingo what your view is. Thank you very much indeed.
The top comment in one of our videos earlier in the week called for a flamingo design, and it had a whole bunch of likes, so how could we not? Find these designs and much more over on our merch store. There's a link to that down in the description below. So earlier this week, Bercow made an emotional speech in the House of Commons, stating his intention is to resign as Speaker.
Colleagues, I would like to make a personal statement to the House. At the 2017 election, I promised my wife and children that it would be my last. This is a pledge that I intend to keep. If the House votes tonight for an early general election, my tenure as Speaker and MP will end when this Parliament ends. If the House does not so vote, I have concluded that the least disruptive and most democratic course of action would be for me to stand down at the close of business on Thursday, October the 31st.
Although Bercow said there that he'd leave at a general election or on October 31st, later in the evening, MPs voted against the general election, so it looks far more likely that the date he'll be leaving is October 31st, giving Bercow about a month and a half more in his position. Bercow has never been shy to tell people what he thinks, making him a rather controversial speaker. In fact, later in that very session, Bercow made his feelings very clear about the prorogation process that was about to shut down Parliament.
They are doing what they believe to be right. No, I'm more than happy if people have got the basic tolerance and manners to listen, they'd hear. But I do want to make the point that this is not a standard or normal prorogation. I don't require any assistance from you, Mr. Stevenson. You wouldn't have the foggiest idea where to start. I had already made the point that people have the manners to listen, which they haven't. That honour that I will play my part. It is not typical. It is not standard. It's one of the longest for decades where it's nothing disorder. I didn't require advice on order from you, Mr. Stewart. You're a master of disorder, man. Mr. Stewart, if you don't like it, you're perfectly entitled to your view. I couldn't give a flying flamingo what your view is. Thank you very much indeed.
The Speaker has a number of roles that we run through in another video, so I won't go through them all here. But the convention is that the Speaker is apolitical and keeps themselves separate from partisan fights. Because of this, it's fairly rare to see the Speaker voice their opinions. Certainly it's rare to see them doing it in the way that Bercow's become so famous for. Bercow would likely argue that his perspectives aren't partisan, and instead aim to defend democracy and the powers of Parliament from an overreaching executive. Others would claim that Bercow had a clear agenda, and was determined to manipulate proceedings to his will. Regardless of whether you loved him or loathed him, Parliament will certainly be very different without him maintaining order.
Order, Prime Minister, please.
But with Bercow stepping down, that means the race to select a new Speaker has begun. Before we discuss the people in the running, let's quickly talk about how the Speaker is actually chosen. The candidates must be a Member of Parliament, and have to be nominated by at least 12 other members, 3 of which must be from a different party. Once the list of candidates is drawn up, Father of the House Ken Clarke acts as presiding officer. The candidates then go through various rounds of secret voting, until one candidate gets an absolute majority. Once the candidate gets the majority in a secret ballot, they are then presented to the House, and if approved, they become the Speaker-elect, formally becoming Speaker once they've received approval from the Queen. So enough process. Whose beautiful voice are we going to be hearing shouting order in the next few weeks? Well, crucially, this isn't the first time that the prospect of Bercow's resignation has been raised. Even back in October of last year, there were already murmurs of who would eventually replace Bercow. At the time, one of the frontrunners was Labour MP Chris Bryant. He told the House magazine earlier this year that it's really important that the Speaker hasn't got a massive agenda of things that are determined to ram through whatever Parliament thinks. I think we've all been a bit bloodied and bruised of late, and the next Speaker has got to be someone who is going to tend to those wounds a bit more, as well as tending to his own wounds at the moment. I've referenced the recovery process for surgery he recently underwent to remove a cancerous growth. His pitch is supposedly threefold. One of respecting every person, being an authoritative but pleasant voice, one who listens to the clerks but is not always driven by their views. And finally, one of prudence, arguing that as chair of the Finance Committee, he's well placed to ensure that money is well spent. Putting Bryant aside, there are some other obvious candidates, including the current deputy speakers, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, Dame Eleanor Lang and Dame Rosie Winterton. Hoyle is a Labour MP, and currently the highest ranking of the deputies, as chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. Hoyle is particularly popular with both sides of the House, as many see him as a safer pair of hands than Bercow. On Twitter, Hoyle remarked, "As members of Parliament, we are clearly in unprecedented times, and it will be vital to have an experienced Speaker who can provide the stability and leadership the House of Commons requires in order to remain at the centre to our political system." Conservative Dame Eleanor Lang, first Deputy Chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, has explicitly stated, "I will try and become Speaker when John Bercow finally decides to go. There is a lot to be done to take our democratic system." She's trying to sell herself as a speaker for change, as well as commenting on the need for a female speaker. The final deputy, Dame Rosie Winterton, hasn't declared any intention to run as of the time of recording, putting her as more of an outsider. Someone who very much has put themselves forward is Labour MP and longest serving female MP in British history, Harriet Harman. Harman held a large number of cabinet and shadow cabinet roles during her time in the Labour Party, even holding the office of chair of the Labour Party and acting leader. Despite this, and campaigning for Remain, she's insisted that she'd be scrupulously neutral if selected as Speaker. However, she said that she'd be less neutral between the executive and Parliament. In a tweet, she praised Bercow's reforms and promised to continue being a champion for Parliament in the face of an expanding executive. Sir Edward Lee and Pete Wishart are more long-shot candidates. Lee is a Conservative and says that he'd submerge his personality into the office and be rigidly impartial. Wishart is a Member of Parliament for the Scottish National Party. He hopes to win the votes of non-London MPs, with pledges including moving Parliament around the UK. Who do you think the new Speaker will be, and do you think it's important who's selected? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Throughout my time as Speaker, I have sought to increase the relative authority of this legislature, for which I will make absolutely no apology to anyone, anywhere, at any time. To deploy a perhaps dangerous phrase, I have also sought to be the backbencher's backstop. Without the support of a small but superb team, the wider House staff, my Buckingham constituents, and above all, my wife Sally and our 3 children, Oliver, Freddie, and Jemima. From the bottom of my heart, I thank them all profusely. I could also not have served without the repeated support of this House and its members, past and present. This is a wonderful place, filled overwhelmingly
by people who are motivated by their notion of the national interest, by their perception of the public good, and by their duty, not as delegates, but as representatives, to do what they believe is right for our country. We degrade this Parliament at our peril. This has been the greatest privilege and honour of my professional life, for which I will be eternally grateful. I wish my successor the very best fortune in standing up for the rights of honourable and right honourable members individually, and for Parliament institutionally, as the Speaker of the House of Commons. Thank you.
Hey there, sorry for the terrible audio, but I was just editing this at home and I found some good reactions to Bercow's resignation from both the Leader of the Opposition and from Michael Gove representing the government. There wasn't time to include them in this video, but if you want to check them out, there's links to both in the description. When the votes take place, we will of course keep you in the loop to let you know what's happening, so be sure to subscribe to our channel. Also, if you want to be notified every time we release a video, you can hit the bell icon. If you want more from TLDR News, you can find us across all social networks simply by searching for TLDR News. And finally, if you want to see your name at the end of the videos, just like these people, then be sure to back us on Patreon. There's a link to that in the description.